Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of MRM Highlights. Today we are joined by Xing Lu, Saeed Jerban and Jiang from the University of California in San Diego. So I went back through the Highlights archive, and I realized that this is Jiang's third interview with us. The first one happened in June 2017, and then we spoke again in May 2018. In what is becoming an annual tradition, Jiang's work is once again an editor's pick, which is a testament to his lab's productivity and consistency. In today's interview, we continue the exploration of cortical bone microstructure using ultrashort echo time UTE imaging with a 3D cone trajectory. In their latest paper, joint first authors Xing Lu and Saeed Jerban applied tricomponent analysis to identify bound water, pore water, and fat fractions, demonstrating high specificity to bone mineral density. This interview took place across multiple time zones and multiple days. But our guests were good sports, and our editor made sure that the conversation flowed smoothly. My biggest concern is making sure to have some continuity by wearing the same shirt, but you should feel free to spot the difference and notice how much has changed between the 2 days when the interview took place. So first, let's take a look at the audio slides that Xing prepared for us, and then we will come back for a brief Q&A with the authors.
Hi everyone, I'm Xing Lu. Today I will introduce three-dimensional ultrashort echo time imaging with tricomponent analysis for human cortical bone. I was a postdoc of Professor Jiang at Dulles Lab in the University of California, San Diego 1 year ago. Now I'm working at 12 Sigma Technologies, which is a startup AI company for medical image diagnosis. Multi-component analysis of cortical bone is one of the focus of Dulles Lab at UCSD. During my studies of the UTE QSM for bone, I found that QSM artifacts caused by fat would be corrected by adding the chemical shift model. So I tried to add similar model to the bicomponent analysis of cortical bone. After some theoretical work, and I believe that it should work. Then together with Saeed Jerban, the first author of this paper, also a postdoc in Jiang's lab, we designed some experiments using the human cortical bone samples and macro-CT to validate this idea and testified the feasibility. Osteoporosis and the resultant bone fractures are major public health problems worldwide. For healthy bone, it will have a quite dense bone matrix, but as age increases and many other factors, the bone mass losses. The porosity in the bone increases, and bone fractures will be more easily to happen. It has been shown that 1 in 3 women over age 50 and 1 in 5 men will experience osteoporotic fractures. As for USA alone, 10 million people have osteoporosis and 18 million people have low bone mass, which will cost $15 billion per year. So, imaging and quantification of bone is of critical importance. For MRI, water tells stories. It is of critical importance to quantify pore and bone water components, as they provide different information about bone biomechanics. When we look into the bone microstructure, water that exists in the Haversian canal and lacuna canalicula system is called pore water. The concentration of pore water could provide a surrogate measure of porosity. The bone water is water that bonds to collagen and mineral that exists in the lamellar fiber arrays or bone matrix. The concentration of bone water reflects organic matrix density. Bond water and pore water have different T2 values, and T2 of bond water is below 1 milliseconds, so only ultra-short T sequences could get signals for both bond and pore water. In recent years, with the development of both 2D and 3D ultrashort T UT sequences, bicomponent exponential T2 star fitting has been extensively studied as a method to separate bond and pore water and to quantify matrix density and porosity. In addition to bond and pore water components, human cortical bone may possess a considerable amount of fat that contributes to the total MRI signal. Several studies have observed the oscillation of the multi-echo MRI signals during the back component fitting procedure, most likely due to the chemical shift caused by the fat in human cortical bone. As shown in Shihong Li's study in 2014, we can see that both for 1.5 Tesla and 3T Tesla, there will be very obvious signal oscillation when they do the back component fitting. According to Ren's study, there is no significant difference between the tibial bone marrow and the subcutaneous fat, and it has been extensively studied of the chemical shift effects that caused by subcutaneous fat. So it is necessary and possible to explore whether a modified tricomponent model with consideration of bond and pore water as well as fat will improve the quantification accuracy. First, we proposed a tricomponent model and did some simulation studies. Then, non-cortical bone specimens were harvested from fresh frozen human tibial midshafts provided by a non-profit whole-body donation company. Bone specimens were cut to 25 mm and were stored in saline solutions for 2 hours before imaging. The specimens were scanned with 3D UTE cone sequences. The UTE images were acquired with a series of 18T delays from 32 microseconds to 25 milliseconds to cover both short and long components decay time. Then a 5 mm slices of the specimens were precisely sorted and scanned with micro-CT. Then both bicomponent and tricomponent model was used to fit the MRI signals pixel-wise. Obtained pore water and bond water mapping was then compared with the porosity and BMD that obtained from micro-CT. By doing statistical analysis of these results, we could compare the difference of bicomponent and tricomponent to see which model is better. This is a bicomponent model. Fs is the fraction of short T2 star component, and Fl is the fraction of the long T2 star component, which are the bond water and pore water specifically. For tricomponent, we take fat into consideration and adopt given Hamilton's model at 2016. Here, RSL is the ratio between the fraction of short component and long T2 star component. And we also set the sum of Fs, Fl, and Ff is as 1. When we fix the ratio between short and long as 2, we can see that with the increase of the fat fraction, the oscillation of the signal will increase. When we fix the fat fraction as 0.2, and with the increase of the ratio between short and long, then the signal will decrease more faster. Figure 2 is a typical mapping result for one bone specimen. A is the micro-CT image, while B and C are property and BMD maps obtained from the micro-CT. Then D is the magnitude of the corresponding UT image with echo time of 32 microseconds. E and F are the short and long T2 star component fraction maps obtained from the bicomponent fitting analysis. I, G, and K are fat, short, and long T2 star component fraction mappings obtained from tricomponent fitting analysis. From this figure 2, we could see that the tricomponent fitting results are more similar to the micro-CT porosity and BMD results. For the quantitatively comparison, we actually need to do a more precise ROI analysis. This is a demonstration of how we make ROIs on the bone. For each bone, we define 3 layers from inner to outer. Then for each layer, we also separate it as 4 regions, as anterior, posterior, mid-medial, and mid-lateral. So for each bone, we have 12 ROIs. If we take closer look into the anterior region, for example, from outer layer to inner layer, there are 3 ROIs. For each ROI, mean value of this ROI of 18 MIT signals were fitted with least square algorithm, and we can see that for all the layers, the signal is fitted much better by tricomponent than the bicomponent. Interestingly, as we know that inner band of the bone will preserve more fat than the outer layer, in the zoomed view, from outer band to inner band, the oscillation of the signals become more drastic, which is also consistent with our simulation results. By doing linear regression between FL and micro-CT porosity for all the ROIs of the bones, it can be found that FL from tricomponent model is better than the FL from bicomponent model. And also we can find that the sum of FL and FF have the best correlation of 0.74. This is quite reasonable that because fat should exist also in the pores of the bone. Figure 5 is a linear regression study between a fraction of short T2 star component and the micro-CT bone mineral density. From the result, we can see that FS from tricomponent also is much better than the FS that calculated from bicomponent. And the FS from the tricomponent analysis could get a correlation is as high as 0.70. To summarize, first, the signal decay for selected RIs was well fitted with the proposed tricomponent model. The presented tricomponent model was able to more accurately quantify fractions of bond and pore water in cortical bone than the bicomponent one. The second, the sum of pore water and fat fractions from tricomponent fitting resulted in the highest correlation with porosity measured. This is suggesting a new potential biomarker for evaluation of bone quality. Finally, thanks to everyone in Jiang's lab. It is really a great team, and thanks to your attention.
Very good to see you back in highlights, Jiang. And I believe this is your 3rd time with us. But it is the first time using this new YouTube format. And hopefully we can hear a little bit more about your work and what has been going on since the last time we spoke. So maybe Saeed can first say about his background and how he came to do work with Jiang.
My background is mechanical engineering. I did my PhD in Sherbrooke University in Canada.
Wonderful, you're a neighbor.
That's right. That's right. Then, I was focused on bone graft and bone imaging, basically on micro-CT and CT. Then I got interested in MRI. Then I found I was looking for a pioneer group in MRI bone imaging. Then I contacted Jiang in 2016. Then after a few emails, then we had the interview and Jiang accepted me, to join the group. And since 2016, I'm working with Jiang on validating different MRI techniques, correlating new MRI techniques, UT imaging with mechanical properties and microstructural properties of bone.
Thank you. And Jiang, seems like this is a very fruitful field for you, at least judging by the number of editors' picks that we have had from your group. Can you tell us a little bit about your group? Seems like you have a very strong connection with China. A lot of the people you're working with either come from there or end up going back to China. How did that collaboration happen?
Yeah, we have been working with GE together, developing this ultrashort echo time UT technique, and try to develop, new acquisition technique to evaluate like a bone, a knee joint, the brain, like mining. There are many hospitals like in China, they're quite interested in those techniques. Each year I went back to China, I would visit the hospital and try to install the sequences. And GE also tried to, facilitate this with the GE customers worldwide in USA, in Europe. We install the UT sequences on like more than 40 sites. So we try to evaluate this performance compared to clinical sequences. So that's how we get more people join us, like especially from China, and now quite some from Iran. They come here. Most of those as visiting scholars. So they come here working for 1 year, then go back to their hospital and doing more research related to this technique. So it's very good for us. Have some more people join us, and they can use this technique for clinical applications.
So Xing, welcome to Highlights. And perhaps first you can tell us how you came to work with Jiang and what brought you back to China after your stay at UCSD.
Yeah, firstly, it's about 2015, and I have got a chance from a China scholar, and the government will support people to go outside and study some new technologies. And at that time, I win a grant, so I come to Jiang's lab. And at that time, I stayed about 2 years. The first year is visiting scholar, and the second year is a postdoc supported by Jiang. And after that, there is some rules, and so I have to come back to China.
So Xing, going from 2 to 3 components introduces quite a few more free parameters in the fit. How many? And do you think that the simulations could have been simplified by reducing the number of free parameters?
Actually, in the bi-component fitting, there are only 4, but for the tricomponent as a multi-peak model is fixed. So the free parameters there, I think it's 6. 7. We need to think about the noise sometimes. So it's 7 for the whole tricomponent fitting. And the model can be make more simplify, because sometimes we can only use the very simple like just take all the fat peaks as one. So that will be much easier to do this tricomponent fitting. But I don't think it will be as good as the multi-peak ones. As I have left from the Jiang's lab, and I think if we have time, we can do more experiments on the data. So maybe people in Jiang's lab could do further studies on that.
This work is the first time you incorporate fat in your analysis. Can you tell us a bit about the significance of this change and the pros and cons of the approach you took?
In human bone, basically we have a considerable amount of fat, and which is not probably available in bovine bone in some of our earlier papers. But if we have fat in cortical bone, there is a contamination of the signal of fat in water signal. So our old way of bicomponent analysis somehow resulted in some errors in some region with high fat amount.
So Jiang, any comments about how we can speed this up?
So for this study, it's more about feasibility, and but clinical, we want clinical applications. So for that one, still some way to go. I think to speed up the acquisition, maybe several approaches we can do, like the multi-echo acquisition. We can easily do interleaved acquisition, like for example 2 or 3 echoes, then interleave 4 or 5 times. And the FAT, we use a fixed FAT spectrum, which is relatively easy to fit because to the oscillation pattern.
Now, the code that you used was written in MATLAB, and it's also exciting data that you are acquiring. Is there any chance to get some of this data and code made available to other researchers that are interested in your work?
Yeah, definitely. We're still planning like for all our code, like the multi-component fitting, UT modeling, all the stuff we want to put online, so share with the community. Now, just our guys kind of like busy. They want try optimize the code better. So do more optimization, then put there. So that's on our plan. So we will try to do that. So share with others.
It's getting harder and harder.
Yeah, but it's a good starting point, and they get quite a positive review. It's on the knee joint loading. So that's his background. He's doing loading and say the knee joint property with UT techniques, like the cartilage, meniscus, ligaments, how they change with different loading. So that proposal probably October.
That's right.
Or November, we need to resubmit that grant.
It was very good to see you. Thank you very much, and good luck with your future research.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, spend your time, Thanks. Yeah.
Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah.